All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's Wednesday, 11 a.m. ish. We got beautiful questions this week about winning, overtraining. Let's bring them on.
Hi, everyone. So I would love for us to start off with more of a broad question, like how can you guarantee progress for your clients or your gym members?
Okay, that's a great one because I think fundamentally the base of every business is problem solving. That means um, people come to you with a problem and you should be able to guarantee that you can solve it. That's the base of every business. That's the base of you going to an attorney because you have a law problem and you want that law problem to be solved. That's a base of a butcher business. You going to a butcher, you have a problem, you're lacking meat, you're going in there and you're solving a problem. For whatever reason, that's not happening in fitness, right? Because fitness is about sweating and feeling good and feeling better and losing weight, but it's not very precise. So I'm interested in how can I 100% guarantee that you can get your first pull up, your 20th push up, your 300 kilo deadlift, whatever it is, right? So we're in the process of getting there. And I think it's worth thinking about how we can achieve that. We've talked about playing a different game. That means having certain stuff that you need to learn, the skill of position, the skill of tension. You have to know what you're shooting for, the goals, which is less bone displacement, more big muscle tension, and always increasing the load. It's a pretty good sign of you're on the right track. We have to have a couple of rules for the hips and shoulders and how to train your muscles. And today we're going to talk about mostly about what does winning mean in training, right? Um, let's start off with I think if you can follow that process, at the end of it, you will be able to guarantee progress. What does that mean? The only thing, so I want to guarantee if somebody shows up at my doorstep, I want to guarantee that that person, if that person's goal is a pull up, that I can guarantee that they're going to get a pull up without getting hurt, etc., etc. The only thing, obviously, that I cannot guarantee is because I cannot control it, is when that is going to happen, right? Because that I cannot influence the time that person is willing to invest to get that pull up. I can guarantee the process. So that means I can guarantee you can get it and you won't get hurt in the process. But it depends on if you're going to show up, very bluntly speaking, 5 times a week or none at all. Right? That makes a huge difference on the time scale. So, but that can be discussed, right? And that's the next step in motivating people to show up more often, right? Because it's not about health anymore. It's about reaching your goals. And the more time you're going to invest, the faster you're going to get the results. And I think that's where should head towards. Okay, that was a very broad intro into how to guarantee progress. Um, shall we talk more about details and specifics?
Yes, please.
I, I think we should. So the first question is how guarantee. This is how I approach it in the book. Is it's a fun exercise to think about reversing problems, right? So that means if I want to guarantee progress, I have to think about how I can absolutely guarantee no progress. So what shall happen so you don't get your first pull up? And this is how I approach it in the book, and it's really simple. It's 3 steps. Um, if you have more bone displacement, that means when you're doing pull-ups, your shoulders rolling forward, your spine is doing something funky. So that will guarantee you not getting a pull-up. The second one is you're using more smaller muscles instead of big muscles. That will guarantee no progress because if you want to use or if you're going to use more of your rotator cuff muscles or smaller shoulder muscles instead of lat biceps, etc., that will absolutely guarantee no progress. And the third one is you're not increasing the load, stimulus, however you want to call it, the challenge in your pull up, to stick with that example. So I approach it like this. So more bone displacement, more use of smaller muscles, and not increasing the load or stimulus is absolutely guarantee you no progress. So how can I reverse it? That's the real question here. How can I fix bone displacement is what we're going to focus on today. And the answer is really simple. I have to learn something, which is called torque. Torque will fix that your shoulder is not going to roll forward once you do a pull-up. So what the fuck is torque, right? Torque is something that cannot be learned. There's a process to it. I compare it to learning a language, right? I can tell you, okay, you want to learn French? Great. Learn French. That's get better at French. That's me saying get better at doing torque, whatever the fuck that means. Okay. I have to break it down. So what does learning French mean? Okay, I have to learn vocabulary, I have to learn pronunciation, and I have to practice writing and speaking. That's literally, I don't know about French, that's literally what learning a language means. Okay, cool. What does it mean in training? How can I get more torque? Because if you watch somebody training, it's either visually pleasing or not, right? But that's not measurable. If I see somebody training, and in my eyes, okay, their ability to create torque is higher than the person next to them squatting shitty, that's a great sentence, but I cannot, like, what should I do about it? So torque for me is really simple. It's the skill of position times the skill of tension, then the right amount of rotation happens. And if you combine those three things, position of bones, tension of muscles, plus rotation as a byproduct of those, then at the end of that process, you will have torque, which means that person is going to move better than before. That means doing a pull-up without the shoulder rolling forward, or to quote the other example, being more capable of speaking French, right? So I cannot tell somebody to create more torque because they don't know what to do. Another example, we have this before, but I think it's a great one. It's the same as telling somebody being more charismatic, right? Telling a coach, okay, in your next session, you have to be more charismatic. Great, but what the fuck does that mean? If I break it down, as with the language, and tell them, okay, once you enter your class, okay, you make eye contact with every single person. I can stand by and observe if that person is actually doing this. So looking in your eyes, nodding or whatever, saying hi, going to the next person, looking in the eye, nodding. Okay, I can measure if the person's doing it or not. Shaking hands, repeating names. There's a couple of actionable steps that I can measure and observe. At the end of that process, that person, that coach, is going to be perceived as more charismatic. Great. Now we have to break the same process down for training. Let's take a practical example of pull-up. So how can I teach somebody to create more torque to avoid bone displacement, which will make them guarantee progress at some point? It's actually super simple. In the pull-up, your shoulder, in the process of pulling yourself up, your shoulder blades need to stay down, go together, and your elbows need to move from the inside towards the outside. That's it. That's position. That's all you have to think about and train and practice while doing a pull-up, right? Super simple. That's position. Okay, tension means your lats has to do the majority of the work. When I say lats, I mean the teres major and the latissimus dorsi. So both of them have certain jobs that you have to train. If you do the position right, that tension will be created, and that will lead to the right rotation. And that at the end of the day will mean you have created more torque and your pull-up will look better. But now we have a step-by-step process where if you follow it, I can guarantee that a pull-up will happen. And I think that's what's missing in the world of fitness right now, because it's about new exercises, it's about feeling better, but that's not the point. Fitness gyms, fitness facilities, they need to solve a certain problem. Otherwise, you run into issues because people are going to question themselves why they have to show up. And the health thing is going to wear itself out at some point. Yes, we'll work in the beginning. You have to get healthier and fitter and lose 3 kilos. That's going to work for a couple of months, maybe even years. But at some point, you're going to lose the motivation. And what is motivation?
Progress.
Motivation comes from that. Go ahead.
I just wanted to,
Sorry.
could you kind of because you now drew kind of like that image of your way to talk. And if you were to, because so many people speak about rotation kind of like as the, it seems, ultimate goal at the end. And
Mhm.
if you were to compare that path to only rotation and not the next step with talk, how would you then see that play out just in comparison? So people see kind of like the juxtaposition of the two of them.
Yes. So rotation is a funny thing. I think this is how we came up with coaching so much rotation and talking a little bit about position attention in the aftermath. So let me begin with rotation is clearly a byproduct of learning the skill of position and learning the skill of tension. It cannot be the starting point. Let's make a very practical example for the shoulder. No matter which position you bring your shoulder blades and humerus, that's the big arm bone, to, plus the greatest big muscle tension you can create in your lats, you can still rotate your shoulder. So
Mm,
what does that mean? I can follow the perfect process, what I just talked about, pinch my shoulder blades together, keep them down, keep my elbows where they should be, and put the lats on. And guess what? I can still do this. Where's my shoulder? I can still rotate. That's a pretty good telltale of you cannot focus on rotation, because it will not secure
mm,
whether that's position or whether that's tension. So it doesn't make any sense to focus on it at first, especially if you want to have guaranteed results. So the problem with rotation is, and I think how this all happens is, we humans will love to learn through mimicking something, seeing something, mimicking it, and then try to duplicate it. And I think that's what happened. Like you watch professional sports, you watch gymnasts, you watch weightlifters, you watch CrossFitters, and you'd be like, okay, that's what they're doing with their shoulder. And then you try to mimic it. And then you put a little bit of stimulus on it. That means you trying pull-ups, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm not doing pull-ups like they do. So you try to set rotation and the position of something as the objective, as the end
mm,
goal of something. And then you're literally doing whatever it takes to get to that goal. But what if it's not the actual goal? So that's why rotation is not a goal in my training system, because
mm,
it's a byproduct of learning position, of learning tension. Okay, so here's the point, and here's an invitation to everybody that thinks differently. We need to consider it, but it's not the starting point. That's what I'm saying. Yes, rotation is happening. I'm batshit crazy, but I'm not stupid. Yes, rotation is happening, but it's not the starting point of movement. It is not. Um, so my approach is coming from a different angle, rather than saying, no, rotation is not happening in movement. Of course it is, but it's not the starting point, and we should unfocus on it very quickly. Because if you do that, you're gonna harm a lot of bodies.
mhm. And to go back to your example, if if we now have that example of a pull-up, so we talked about the issue of the shoulder rolling forward, and then also you mentioned like the next step is like talking about the muscles that are involved, and
Mhm.
we hear that so often, like all the fucked rotator cuff muscles, etc. Take us a step further now to the
Sure.
muscles.
Sure. So the second step to guarantee progress. First one is less bone displacement. Talked about this already. The second one is less involvement of small muscles and using bigger muscles. I know it sounds so simple, but it is. The execution might not be that simple, but that's the main thought behind it. So what happens if you displace bones? That means your shoulder rolling forward. That's not bad per se. The bad thing that happens is, if you do that, you're going to drag muscles into a bar fight they have not signed up for, right? Because your muscles, to function properly, need a certain position of the bone. Because guess what? Muscles are attached with tendons to bones. So whenever you displace a bone, that means you're going to drag some muscle into a bar fight is never signed up for. Okay, this is you sitting at a bar and just talking to somebody, drinking your beer, and all of a sudden a drunk person comes in and starts a fight, and you're like, dude, I'm not really. Like, I'm not in the mood. And then you get the first punch in your face, and all of a sudden you're in a bar fight, right? So what's the solution to it? It's really simple. So you need to secure the position of the important bones to make the big muscles work. The fancy theory is, and again, I'm not denying that the rotator cuff is taking a beating. It is. I'm not denying MRIs. I'm not denying any CTs that are out there. I get it. Rotator cuffs are, but they're the victims, not the perpetrators. Because if you roll your shoulder forward, that means your rotator cuff has to do work that is not meant to do. It is meant to do for the lats. How did I end up there? It's really simple. If you look at the attachment of muscles on those bones, every rotator cuff muscle is attached on the outside on the shoulder blades and the outside of your humerus. That means it has a potential to be under tension, but not create tension, because tension is going to be created in a spiral, and it's not happening if you pull in the same direction. Right. So what's the solution to it? It's super simple. If you follow the right positions of your shoulder, that will lead to you using the bigger muscles instead of the small muscles. Very practically speaking, if you do a pull-up and if you keep rolling your shoulder forward, it will never change. If you do a pull-up and you're going to pinch your shoulder blades together, keep them down, and follow the inside to the outside road of your elbow, your humerus, then the lat will work. That is how your shoulder works. Position first. This will create the right tension needed. Both of them are going to lead to controlling rotation in your shoulder. And at the end of the day, you will be perceived as having more torque, just fucking moving better. All right? That's a very simple process. In the book, I describe it as dumping tension in your small muscles, overworking, overusing small muscles, and pumping blood into big muscles. It's a very simple idea, but it's hard to execute if you're focusing on rotation first. So that's the second one, because I want to make sure that people stop ruining and injuring their rotator cuffs. And then you're going to stand in the gym and doing rotator cuff exercise. It's going to help a little bit, right? But you have to do it every single training session to feel better. It's not gonna make you stronger. It's a band-aid. It's a crutch, let's be honest.
What would you tell someone though who opposes this by saying that, oh, we definitely need to strengthen those smaller, weak muscles because I feel like that has become kind of like the trend. Everyone talks about like, I mean, people very often when they like tell you about them doing yoga or Pilates, it's always their first argument is, oh, I feel all those small muscles work that normally don't work. And it's kind of like a selling point of many of these sports and activities. So, what would you now tell someone who's like, oh, I feel like we should strengthen the small ones. We should not focus on the big ones.
Okay, the short answer is I don't know how that stuff comes up. I have a theory, and I'm going to tell you about it. The weird thing is, I have yet to see a single diagnosis of a large muscle not working. That means I've never heard about a lat dorsal syndrome. I've never heard about any big muscles being overworked. The only diagnosis that are out there is small muscles being overworked, or whatever you want to call it, tears, partial tears, inflammation, whatever you want to call it. And that is absolutely true. But that doesn't mean that is also the solution. What if, and that's the main principle behind pumping more blood in big muscles and dumping it in small muscles is, what if those small muscles are not supposed to do that much of a work, right? And how can we reverse that? Well, guess what? I've done this for like 15, no, that's not true, 5 years now, is once you pump more blood into the lat dorsi, there will be a dump in blood flow through the rotator cuff. that will diminish the amount of inflammation that's in there. And this is not about weaker or stronger. This is about your body doesn't think in weak or strong. It just wants to make stuff work. And our job is to set the right goal for your body to work towards, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to get rid of your rotator cuff issues, it's so simple, it's almost embarrassing. Make your lat dorsi work. This is not easy, but this is the only long-term solution we will shoot for, we'll have to shoot for.
Could you break this down more on a practical level with how you would do that?
Yes, I know the process very well because my rotator cuff was fucked up 10 years ago, like bad. Partial supraspinatus tear, biceps tendon inflammation, you name it. So I had it. The process is very simple. Any upper body exercise you want to do needs to be based on learning 3 shoulder blade positions plus the elbow. This will lead to you using more lat dorsi and less rotator cuff. Practically speaking, this means give me one exercise that's not a pull-up for the upper body.
One exercise that is not a pull-up?
Yeah.
A biceps curl.
Sweet. Okay. In a biceps curl, all you have to do is keep your shoulder blades together, keep your shoulder blades down, and go from the outside to the inside with the elbow. Okay, this is gonna make sure that the biceps is gonna work more while doing a biceps curl rather than your shoulder or something else, right? So the perception of prescribing exercises without knowing what to actually look for, that's gonna solve a problem. This is something I cannot explain. I mean, I can a little bit because it just fills our heart with joy, ticking boxes off and having a plan. But a biceps curl is not gonna reduce your rotator cuff issues if you don't know what you have to do. That's the real issue behind it. So you have to know the shoulder positions, you have to know which muscle needs to work, and you have to actually practice that. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. So what I've done, for example, to fix my shoulder and my rotator cuff is a lat pull down. So, but it's not about the lat pull down. I can do a lat pull down and go like this, rolling my shoulders forward, and it's not gonna help me get my lat dorsi going. And that's my point. It's not about the lat pull down or the biceps curl or the pull up. It's about, okay, this is what I need to practice. I have to practice getting my shoulder blades down, squeezing together while my elbows go from the inside towards the outside. And this is going to lead to me using more and more of my lat dorsi. Both is going to lead to controlling rotation your shoulder. And all three are going to lead to your rotator cuff relaxing, right? So this is not about strengthening an overworked muscle. This is about dumping tension in overworked muscles and redirecting it into bigger muscles who are literally size and attachment wise designed to do the majority of the work.
And when you coach someone, one of your gym members, when doing, for instance, something like a lat pull down, someone who is suffering from problems with their shoulder, what are you specifically looking at?
Exactly what I'm talking about. I'm looking, okay, so in the shoulder, it's position to tension, which leads to rotation, and the end product of all three will be torque. So I'm looking in the upper body, I'm looking at positions exclusively, but a position is not static. A position is not, this is how it should look, and this is how it's going to look for the rest of the movement. No. There's a starting position. That means, very practically speaking, in a lat pull down, this is somewhat of your starting position. Okay, great. Your shoulder blades are on the outside. Maybe your shoulder blades up. I don't care. What's the position in between? So once I start pulling, and what's my goal for the end position? Position is not a photo. Position is not one picture. Position is a video. It's a sequence of going from the start all the way to the finish. And I think that's where we got the positions thing wrong. because we're thinking about, okay, this is the end position of my shoulder, and I don't care how you get there. No. This is the starting position. This is what happens in between, and this is the end or finish position. So that means this is your starting position. Shoulder blades are to the outside. Okay, in between, they're going to move together and they're going to move down. And at the end of the movement, I want them to be in, touching each other. And this is what the elbow needs to do. Your elbow needs to start on the inside. And as you go out, you're going to move your elbow towards the outside while still doing the stuff that I just talked about with your shoulder blades. That's the only thing I look at. Upper body exercises if I coach somebody. Because I know if my peeps are doing what I've just talked about, the lat dorsii will do more work. I don't focus on anything else in the upper body than this. This will control which tension will be built up, and this will control which rotation will happen in your shoulder. And this is going to lead to you using less of your rotator cuff muscles. And as a nice side product, this is how I can guarantee you a pull-up.
Which then actually brings us to the final step of the 3 you mentioned, winning the training session.
Yes. So I try to keep this short. There's 4 elements of how to win a training session, and it's all about measuring it. Winning a training session cannot be about feelings, words, or the amount of sweat you've lost in the last 60 minutes. That's hilarious. So I have 4 categories, which are obviously connected to the goals. So let's start with less bone displacement. The win for less bone displacement is you have to win the last rep. That means, let's go back to the lat pull down. If your last rep looks better in terms of this is what we want to achieve with the shoulder blades and with the elbow, if it's better than the first one, you won that set. You won that session. Guess what? If you start off a certain way and it gets worse, that means your shoulder blades are getting less in, more out, more up, whatever it is. Your elbows go not out, but whatever they're doing. Guess what? You lost the training session and you're not going to get better. This is how I can guarantee progress. The second one is about, the second and third one is about tension. So that means we need to learn how to contract muscles and twist them. I'm not going to go into details about this. We have certain benchmark numbers that we're shooting for, right? With exercises that are going to emphasize that the big muscles are going to be used and you're going to actually do twisting motions. The pump and dump is the third one. We talked about this. We want to dump tension in small muscles and pump that blood flow, that tension into the bigger muscles. There's an easy way to measure this because I can see contraction visually. I can see if your lat dorsii actually gets pumped with blood or not. You can see it visually. You have to take your shirt off, obviously, but that's what people love doing while training. So you can visually see this, so you can measure it. And the last one is called the ping pong principle, which is super simple. It's basically combining reps and sets with the first 3 ways to win. So only if you follow all 4 steps, you're allowed to do either more reps or more weight. Super easy to measure. But it's the last step. It's not, okay, in my training world, it's not the first one as in, okay, we're going to do 5 lat pull downs with 70 kilos today. It's like, okay, that doesn't make any sense if you don't know what position you're in, which tension you're looking for to control rotation in your upper body. That doesn't make any sense. You should set an objective, and guess what? If you set an objective, people will do whatever is necessary to do the 5 reps with 70 kilos. No focus on position, no focus on tension. You just want to get it done because it gives you a good feeling of ticking off that to-do box because your coach told you 5 times 70% today, and you've done it. So you feel like you won. The problem is you wake up the next day and your shoulder hurts. And you're like, wait. But I did that weight for 5 reps. I did exactly what my coach told me, and my shoulder hurts the next day. I don't get it.
Isn't it? It's actually kind of crazy now that because you just said that example of someone like waking up and it's kind of crazy that there are so many people who then wake up in the morning and for instance they feel pain, but it's pretty much like even accepted in a way because it's like, okay, well, he or she told me to do that and I'm sure it's fine. It's that kind of like that trust that many people have in their coaches where they are like, oh, I'm sure he or she knows what they are doing.
They don't, including me. We're trying to get as close to creating a system that's going to train you, and maybe mine is working better than others. But the base of my training principle and my training system is you have to be in charge of your training. You have to have you have to educate yourself because otherwise you don't know what you're doing. If you rely on others, this is exactly what's going to happen. Everybody's going to tell you, "Hey, you've done a great job. You look better," and you're thinking like, "All right, but my fucking shoulder hurts."
Mm,
And then you go to somebody else, which is maybe it's in the medical world, and you're like, okay, my shoulder hurts. And they know exactly what to do. And then you do this, and it's like, well, it's not actually getting better. But it's
mm,
like, I have so many experts telling me what to do, but actually my shoulder is not getting better. So you have to take responsibility for yourself. That means you have to learn what you're looking for. And this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to break it down into actionable steps so you know what you should be doing. That doesn't mean you don't need a coach. Of course, he or she can help you, but she or he cannot solve the problem for you. Educate yourself, learn the positions, learn which tension should be happening, which big muscles, and then you can stop that vicious cycle that most people go through in their own training. There's a great saying, and I just started with in the book with it, which I can't remember who it was. I think it was Mark Twain who said, "Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect." Maybe there's a couple of examples where um, the majority of people, whatever the majority of people are doing, is not the best way forward. That doesn't mean you should oppose to everything that most people are doing. I'm just saying pause, reflect, think about, is it actually working what I'm doing? Like for me, I did this yesterday for my shoulder. My shoulder hurts more today. This is not working.
mm.
Okay, and then try to find another solution and make it work by educating yourself. And I'm trying to give you a little bit of a couple of nuggets so you have an easier time learning that stuff.
We are perfectly on time. So it's last words.
Famous last words. Okay.
Yes.
Um, I hope I'm gonna finish the book soon. This is, and whenever I'm very emotional about this stuff because I see stuff happening all the time and people getting frustrated about and not unmotivated about training and working on their bodies. That's not on you. I think there's not a great solution out there which is enticing and guaranteeing progress at the same time. And that's a void I'm seeing, and that's a gap I'm trying to fill. And the book is the first step on going in that direction. If you want to have any questions about your shoulder, your hip, your knee, your ankle, bring them on. Keep asking questions. Keep educating yourself. Never rely on others other than your mom. See you next week.